Follow parent objects is an incredible feature in Arttista that makes brushes placed inside other objects follow the animation of their parent objects. Let's look at some examples. Observe the animation of these two balls throughout the entire timeline. Now, let's select the bottom ball before starting to use the brush to tell Arttista that we will paint inside it. Then, we begin painting a subtle shadow on the left side. Notice that the ball was already animated when the shadow was painted. Therefore, the shadow is static while the ball is not. At this moment, we are going to use the Follow Parent Objects feature to make the shadow points follow the nearest points of the parent object. Let's select the entire shadow and also select the parent object, the ball, then go to the animation menu and choose Follow Parent Objects or press Shift-Control F5. Now, we have our shadow following the nearest points of the parent object. Let's reset everything and try something else. Let's paint a shadow that belongs to two objects simultaneously. We select both balls before starting to use the brush, and then paint the shadow across both of them at the same time. I'm going to make a few adjustments to the position of the shadow points, their transparency, and the size of each point in order to make it look softer. And this is our result so far. Now let's select the entire shadow, select the top ball, and go to the Follow Parent Objects function menu. Notice that the shadow now starts following the entire animation of the top ball. But interestingly, only the top ball. To make the bottom part of the shadow follow the bottom ball, which is also one of the shadow's parent objects, we select only the points from the lower part of the shadow, also select the bottom ball, and apply the Follow Parent Objects function again. Now notice the difference. The bottom part of the shadow follows the bottom ball, while the upper part of the shadow points follows the top ball. Now I'm going to ask for a little poetic license to demonstrate one of Arttista's brush features. Notice that throughout the animation, the textures that make up the brush seem to experience a kind of noise similar to a subtle shaking effect. This is the perfect moment to talk about that. This happens because Arttista needs to ensure that, regardless of the brush point's positions, the brush is always redrawn with enough textures to match its new length. So, new textures keep appearing to guarantee the brush stroke maintains good visual quality. For illustration, this is great. For animation, it can be disastrous. That's why the freeze textures function exists. It freezes the brush stroke, allowing you to animate the brush points without modifying the stroke itself. To do this, you can click this button here and notice that the brush point icons change. Now, the stroke looks perfect for this animation. Now, let's select the entire shadow and click the Freeze Textures button to apply this function to the shadow stroke. Finally, we have a shadow without the texture shaking inside the stroke. It is possible to combine different following techniques. For example, we can paint a shadow from the top ball onto the bottom ball. The shadow projected onto the bottom ball will belong to the bottom ball. But then, how will it follow the top ball if the top ball is not its parent? We are going to use another Arttista function called Follow Last Segment. We select the newly painted shadow and then lastly, select these 2 points from the top ball and apply this function. The shadow then starts following the top ball even though it belongs to the bottom ball. In the same way that we painted shadows, we can combine different techniques to create texturing, subshapes, lighting, and of course, paint hard shadows, since each brush can be transformed into a hard shape without a soft stroke. Although final adjustments are always necessary, the Follow Parent Objects function is surprisingly useful for applying details and changes, even after the character animation is already finished. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to recommend us to your friends.